Welcome to Obstacle Illusion. We're back at it. Anna Clint here with the blown out camera. And with my sister from another mister, April Gallagher.
It's me.
Whose camera is working much better.
It's just my light doesn't shine as brightly.
I cannot dim this. I can't dim this. It will not dim.
Can't dim this.
Can't dim this. So that's what we've been talking about lately, is dimming your light and outshining. And that led us down the rabbit hole today to, is it okay to be myself? Or is it okay for you to be yourself? I don't really know how to phrase that.
So let's just start with what do we mean by that? Like, what does it mean to be okay with being yourself?
Yeah, it's like hard to, like, what does that really mean? We kind of say that, right? We say
that
like
all the time, right? It's okay to be me. It's okay to be you. Like, you do you, you be you.
Yeah, but what does that really mean?
But what does that really mean? Because I feel like this journey is kind of about figuring out who you are, like who the real you is, what isn't really you, what has just been put upon you through conditioning or through behaviors that you've adopted in order to navigate situations, so part of being you requires figuring out who you are, and part of that is taking a really honest look at what you're doing out of patterns, and what really feels like who you are.
Right.
And I think one of the things that happens in this process that none of us are really necessarily prepared for is that when you kind of uncover all of that stuff, there's a truth of your greatness that's so much bigger and more powerful and expansive than we're really prepared for, right?
And so, and when you say, when you do this, you're talking about spiritual awakening, right?
Yeah, which I feel is just kind of the code word for living in this particular lifetime. Like, I think that every human on this planet, this is the lifetime where it's time to wake up, and everyone will wake up, and some of us will be lucky enough to wake up in this body, and others will choose to leave the body, but that awakening will happen. So it's like it's happening this lifetime, and we have this really cool opportunity to do it actually in a physicality. So
I love that. I love that so much. This idea that, okay, of course, it's always coming back to that idea of choice, but like, wow, like, what would that mean to be awake, like in this physical body, to be like really awake? And so, but to get back to our theme.
Do we have to? It's okay. It's okay.
Write that down for another time. But the word authenticity is like such a catchword that it almost doesn't, like, it's just used so much, it almost doesn't mean anything. But we're really, like, can we decode what that means in the context of what you're talking about? Like, to be authentically you is to not be the you that is reacting and stuck in patterns that are from this lifetime or from who knows how long ago of conditioning, or we can even say like soul contracts that aren't actually affirming you. And I don't know, I'm talking messy here, but what I heard you say was like stripping back. Like, I often talk about like how we're all wearing these layers of clothing, right? And like, we're moving through the world. We came into the world with a layer that said you're a white girl born in, where were you born?
Me?
Yeah, Minnesota.
North Carolina.
North Carolina. Way off.
US.
Yeah, she's a white American little girl born in X year in the United States. And so like there's like a layer of clothing just right there. And then your family is like, well, girls do this and they play with these kinds of toys and they behave this way in public. And so there's another layer of clothing. And then, it's all this stuff. And some of those layers are actually like layers that we put on, like, and now I'm married and I'm a wife, and this is another layer that I'm going to wear, or I'm a mom, or I'm of this or whatever.
Mhm.
And then, but our soul is underneath all of these layers. Like that's what true authenticity is in my book, is like when you can peel back, and some of those layers are helpful and affirming, and some of those layers aren't. But most of the time when we're unconscious or less conscious than we want to be, we're wearing these crusty old layers that are like, this happened to you when you were 7. And so now you think the world's out to get you because this one thing happened and you weren't able to comprehend what that was because you were just 7, for crying out loud, or whatever age you were.
Yeah.
And so that's another layer. And that layer is like all crusty and grimy, but we wear it and we don't know that we're wearing it. But that's kind of a little bit off topic, I think, because what we're really talking about is like, so I think what we're talking about, and maybe I'm wrong, but are you giving yourself permission to know your truth, live your truth, own your truth, and speak it out loud? Like, to me, that's like, is it okay for me to be me? And I'm going to say, like, right now, sometimes.
I want to say theoretically, the answer is absolutely hell yes. Like,
yeah, 100% of the time, theoretically.
100% of the time, right? But
100%
in
of the time.
practice, there's definitely a little bit more navigating that goes on. And I
Totally.
think that, so there's something also off topic that has occurred to me recently, and it does have to kind of do, that's a nice mug. It does have to do with, does have to do with this idea of waking up within or without the body.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one thing to say, like, yes, this is what I want. I'm going to do these spiritual practices. I'm going to do this. But really, I'm thinking about somebody in particular who keeps having these choice points, basically, of whether to leave the planet or not, right? Like, things happen. And it's like, it's not about like getting COVID or not getting COVID, or getting pneumonia, not getting it. These are choice points. It's right. It's like, well, do you want to stay or not? Mm-hmm. And it's not just enough to say like, yes, I want to stay. It goes beyond to actions speak louder than words. And what that means is that you have to be okay with your greatness. You have to say like, okay, I've been really comfortable being broken and trying to fix myself all of these years. I'm really comfortable with this idea that my dad harmed me and I lack self-confidence or whatever it is. And I'm working on it or whatever, but it's like, no, like you actually have to, the time to just play around with these ideas is done. You have to step in. You have to be okay being creator, incarnate. You have to be okay no longer being that identity of this wounded, unlovable person. Like,
you're not talking about me, are you?
I'm not, actually. Not. And I'm
just
not talking
checking.
about me either. But somebody who I know, who I've seen go through these choice points over the last couple of years, and it just kind of hit me the other night of like, this is what it means. It's not just enough to you actually then have to let go of those pieces of clothing. You really do have to actually take off the clothing and
of course, the deep irony of what you're saying is that all of us, whether we are living our greatness and being authentically ourselves, or are stuck in those old patterns and old narratives, either both of those situations are you are creating that reality. And so it's like, it always goes back to the thing that I always say, it's like, if we're writing the story, why aren't we writing it to be like the most magnificent story that we can imagine?
Mhm.
And then that goes back to like these old patterns or old soul contracts. Like, I made a contract with this person
Mhm.
that says that I'm going to be the victim or the bad guy or the perpetrator, or I'm going to be the whatever, like whatever the contract is. I made this contract, and so therefore I'm going to stick with it. And it's like, well, okay. Is that a contract you want to continue, or would you like to renegotiate the terms of that contract?
Let's just say you got a brand new agent who's very good and can get you out of any contract that you may have. Like, this guy is slick. So you tell me what you want and we'll go from there.
This guy, I think we're talking about you.
Yeah, absolutely. It is that choice point, right? It's like you actually
Totally.
have to choose, and
Yeah.
you have to be, there's, I don't know if humility is the right word, humble, gracious for sure, of like not beating yourself up over the fact that you have chosen it so many times, and
Yeah.
not beating yourself up over the fact if you're not quite ready to let it go, right?
Yeah.
Like, understanding that it's all good, it's all fine, and whatever timeline you choose to do it on is fine. The point though is to recognize that it is your choice, and that there are and really it is just a matter of choosing, and then everything else follows behind it. And then of course it isn't just like you choose and decide, then then you have to put in practices to help, that you
Absolutely.
have to not reinvent yourself, but reinvent the way you do things, because we have all of these patterns and stuff.
Yeah. You have to make new muscles.
You have to make new muscles.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally. I love that. So you're talking about radical self-acceptance, which says like, I've chosen this for every day of my life for X number of days, months, years, decades. And that's okay. And, and then that's that choice point where, and then from every moment they're forward, like you just get to make the choice. Like, am I going to go back to what I know that's decades old, that's familiar and crusty, or am I going to, stumble, fumble, make mistakes, and try to, grow this new muscle that says, actually, no, that isn't the path for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then you said something else and I already talked over it and I can't remember what it was. And I wanted to remark on that. It was just so great.
You take notes, Anna. That's why you like have pen and paper. And if you have an idea, you put it down.
Yeah, that would help us in so many ways.
May I say something too?
Yes, Nicola.
I found it interesting. You said something about the past lives too at the beginning, and not past lives. I don't remember quite exactly, but I wanted to introduce to the idea of yes, there is the family with which we grew up, but there's to the social, the whole of society, and there is too the DNA of the family you have, which means your ancestors that play a role
Yeah.
in your story. And I met a woman, and she's some years ago, and she said the first 30 years we live our lives entangling us, and the rest of our lives we unwrap ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I find it still very true for me. And
Yeah.
I only saw in the last few years that I was mostly living the belief system of my family.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to blame them for that.
Mm-hmm.
It's of no use.
Mm-hmm.
And to do something different is quite difficult if you are trained to, or if I'm trained to do it for, say, let's say 30 years. For me, it was longer, and I just had plenty of question marks. And I think it is also of no use to stress on my history. It's, I think it is more important to say it was like that, and I want to choose my greatness, if you will. I want to choose to be that person I'm meant to be. And I think it needs humbleness, as you said, April, um, to be humble and accept what I am or what I'm meant to be. And I don't think that authenticity is an over stressed word. For me, it is not. I think
Mhm.
authenticity is a real word that has grip on it. It's not anything. So, but it takes courage and boldness too to do that. That's and what I find too, it's not to have it the idea in the head. It needs these ideas, of course, but it needs to have the courage to embody or to incorporate my my beingness, if you will.
Mhm. Mhm. And it takes courage to actually even look at what is your beingness,
Yes,
you
and
know?
it's not necessary to be my beingness to 100%. It's allowed. I allow myself to be it first at 20%
Mhm.
perhaps, then
Mhm.
30, then let this grow like you let flourish.
Right. Yeah, that's how you make those muscles, right? It's just
Yes,
little bit by little bit.
exactly. And I think sometimes I don't even see where I have made progress, even though I have
Mhm.
made big steps. It's sometimes it's important to look that
Mhm.
you become better and better every day. Not to get perfect, don't misunderstand me, but to make progress in the way that is possible every day.
Mhm.
And to be
Mhm.
grateful every day for every little step I take.
Mhm.
And I try to do that. I think I try that for a long time, so I get quite good at it.
Practice makes perfect.
Yeah.
If there's such a thing as perfect, which there isn't.
No, not it's not necessary, because it's also to accept that we are human, and that's
Mhm.
what I think I grew up quite with the idea to become perfect, but it's of no use.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
very stressful, and the day I accepted that I am human, I can laugh over myself.
Yeah.
I laugh at me, and yes, and that's
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I have a lot to say on perfection, but that is not
For
not the
another
subject of
day.
today. But I
You
just
know?
wanted to piggyback on something that you said, which was this. You talked about there's the family dynamic, there's the kind of societal dynamic, and then there's the DNA,
Mm,
and not blaming your parents and
mm,
all of that, but and letting the past be the past. And I think
mm,
all of that's important. And the thing to remember, or the way that I see this, is that you came into this family, into this society with this DNA, not as a hindrance, but because this is the lifetime that we have the opportunity to
mm.
clear those
Exactly.
things. This is the opportunity for you to then embody, and you have that courage to embody the truth of who you are, and the act of doing that actually cleanses then the family line, it
Mhm,
expands into the society, and it clears those energetics from the DNA. We are rewriting our DNA. And so you chose this DNA not as a hindrance or as a leg up, but because this is with your particular skills, what would be appropriate for you to clear in this
Mhm.
lifetime?
Mhm.
in fact, it's life doesn't happen to me, it happens for me, what you
Mhm.
want, what you said. And I think there is a story too, that when you when you're born, you are equipped with everything that you need to live your life. Unfortunately, you get all your tasks, and you get all your talents too. Unfortunately, with the moment of birth, you forget all your talents.
It's a big cosmic joke.
Yes. And then you have to, that's somehow the unwrapping, the reminding of what am I able to do, be and to be, in fact.
Yeah. It's interesting. Lately in my work with my clients, I've been clearing a lot of trapped emotions that are coming from conception and first and second and third trimester. And people are like, what on earth is this? Like, why would I have a trapped emotion from before I'm even in the world as breathing air? And it's like, it's because you realized, oh shit, what have I done? What did I sign up for this time? And it's just like, and they're like, oh, like, yeah, oh. Yeah.
And that's what happened to the mother, in fact, with the baby in her womb. It's the word. Yes, I can relate to that because I have two sons, and yes, I think the emotions and what happened in my life during my pregnancy has something to do with my children too. Absolutely.
Sure, absolutely. Most definitely. Most definitely.
And even before birth, because somehow children choose their parents too. So in fact, if I take full responsibility that I chose my family,
yes,
thank you.
Yes.
That's a hard lesson.
It's hard, but it's total freedom.
Yes.
It is 100% freedom. Oh, I chose this crazy ride. Oh.
Oh my God.
Okay, cool. Then I am going to choose to do like great. Like once you figured that out, you're like, oh, all of this stuff I've been doing is this resisting and this fighting and this blaming and all this stuff. I don't have to do it anymore. I can just I can put that down. I'm putting it down now. And that is freedom. That's it. That's freedom.
That's self-acceptance first, and then I've freedom. Yes, but I have to accept that first, I think.
Yeah.
And then I can choose otherwise, and that's the freedom you meant. Did I understand that right?
Yeah. Well, and it's freedom from that suffering, like the blaming, the resisting, all of that is suffering. All of that is painful. All of it is an energy leak. All of it is draining. It's toxifying. It's heavy and it's painful and it's hard and it's heartbreaking.
Well, yeah, it's painful to think you're powerless.
Right. It's painful to think you're powerless. And then when you go, oh, wait a second, what if it's possible that I chose this?
And let me just say right there too, that just to piggyback on that and what Nicola said was, and you have the skills, like, even if you don't know what they are yet, like if you chose it, okay, so I chose this and supposedly I have the talents to right.
What could that be?
Right.
And that is creativity. If you ask yourself that question, you can train your creativity. Well, what could my skill be?
Yeah. Or skills.
Exactly. I relate to that one situation, not all over. The skills, they are supposedly skills, obviously, for the whole life.
So I totally thought we were going to get into people pleasing on this conversation, which we totally haven't.
Well, now we're done. So
now
I'll
we're done.
write it down.
So you want to do people pleasing next time?
Please, people.
Please me. Would someone please me?
People pleasing.
Aren't I a people?
People please.
So I'm just gonna